You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button on our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for July 30th, 2024. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we went to the Illinois Shakespeare Festival over the weekend, and we had a damn fine time. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Yes, it was a hell of a date, and It
was a lovely date, and we had to drive through about 70 miles. It's about an hour away, right?
Yeah.
70 miles of cornfields, soybean fields, windmills, and Trump signs.
Yeah.
Because you're driving from Springfield to Bloomington, two cities in between which are just rural areas.
Right.
And we got there, and the Ewing Cultural Center in Bloomington, which houses the Illinois Shakespeare Festival, is just gorgeous. Be a great place to have a wedding. It's just a lovely park atmosphere, outdoor theater. Just lovely. The performance was excellent. We went to see the Scottish play because we're not going to drive to Bloomington and stay the night and come back for Timon of Athens or Cymbeline.
No.
I have a list of plays that are worth traveling for.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, Taming of the Shrew is one of them.
That's a great play.
It's a great play, and I've seen modern performance of that where the two primary characters drive off in a motorcycle at the end of the show. It's set in modern times, and it's got a whole, power dynamic between the couples that's quite sexy. And if you play it that way, then it can be a very modern play. It's not subjecting women to to make them less than if you play it that way.
With what? So, with my tongue in your tail? Is that the?
That one got a big laugh.
That's the play.
That's the play. It's it's a sexy play, and if it's played that way, where the woman knows full well what's going on at the end of that, and she's happy, then it's not a sexist performance. And I think we're beyond. There is no blackface Othello.
No,
that's out.
No.
Sorry, Laurence Olivier, that's out. But I have a list. There are some that I'll go see, and then there are some I don't want to see any of the fairy comedies. I'm not interested in that.
You can read those if you want. They're fine.
Yeah, that's fine. But
they're not worth the trip.
Not worth the trip. But the Scottish play is definitely worth the trip. We love the Denzel Washington version of the tragedy of Macbeth. It is I've watched it 4 times. It is an amazing film by one of the Coen brothers, Joel Coen, made it, and I could watch it again right now. It's just fabulous.
It's the Denzel Washington Francis McDormand Macbeth.
And I would want to look up the actress who plays the witches also, because she's amazing. And
she's amazing.
The whole, all of it. It won awards for production design, which it absolutely should. It's in black and white. You don't miss the color at all. It's just fabulous. And it's on Apple TV. It's called The Tragedy of Macbeth.
And the reason we know this is because we got home, we unpacked, did the laundry, and my wife said, I want to watch Macbeth.
After we'd just seen it the night before, yes. And Driftglass said, boy, did I marry the right woman.
Yeah. So we got snacks and our drinks, and we sat down and we watched just a terrific Macbeth. And we compared the performances because we're nerds that way.
Yeah.
And we're nerds that way. And
it was very, very, very good performance. I had purchased the tickets. I'm on their mailing list because I've been wanting. This was our first time going there.
Right.
And I'd been wanting to go for years to Illinois Shakespeare Festival, and they have plays there that I don't want to see. And so that's fine. I know they draw in people, and they're popular for the summer, and I just don't want to see them. I want to see Hamlet. I want to see Big Macbeth. So, so we, but when the day the tickets went on sale, I was on it to buy them. So we had really good seats.
We had groundling seats.
We were groundling seats. We were in the front row center.
Yeah.
And so, and this was a performance where they were going up and down the aisles between the audience as well.
Right.
They took over the whole theater in sort of moving battles and, witches and everything. People were moving throughout the theater to bring it to life. So we got
and you know what?
Close personal with a lot of stuff.
And here's the thing: there will be no more black-faced Othello, but there were male parts in this that were played by women.
Absolutely.
And you know what? And nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
It doesn't matter. What matters are the words.
Yeah.
The performance and the words. And all the performances were excellent.
They were. The costume design was amazing, not just for the witches, but for the king. The use of tartan throughout the performance was beautifully done.
And I have to emphasize, we are sitting 3 feet from the actors.
Yes.
They're right there.
Actually half a foot from one of the actors when he hopped down to do some stuff. It's like, okay, I'll sit back a little bit so I don't breathe on you.
and while the witches were flopping around on stage, one of them lost a large bead.
A bead off of their costume
that fell right in front of us. Right in front of us. And I was at least scared, like, will Macbeth hit that with his foot and trip over it?
And hit the floor. Yeah.
See, this is my catastrophizing at work.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, there's a tripping hazard right there. And someone did 2 seats down from us at a quieter moment, run over and pick it up.
One of the most boring and utterly played out genres of criticism is critiquing and analyzing Shakespeare, right? It's been done for 400 years. In fact, Isaac Asimov, believe it or not, wrote an entire story called The Immortal Bard about this very same thing, this exact thing. So this episode, you're going to get a little bit of Science Fiction University, Isaac Asimov, and you're going to get a little bit of No Fair Remembering stuff because it is a 400-year-old Scottish play or English play. And you're going to get a mini writer's workshop, and you're going to get a whole lot of politics.
We got a whole lot of politics to talk about because it's all connected, people.
It's all connected, people. Trust us. Just relax.
Sit back.
As we were going through our notes, I got a couple of raised eyebrows from my dear wife, and I'm like, just trust me. Just go with it.
It's a story. Comes together.
It all comes together.
Tale to tell. Yep.
Just relax. It's and our contributors and our sponsors, not non-advertising sponsors, are what make this possible. So this is like our PBS presentation of our version of politics. A small number of people are paying for all of this, and we're glad it goes out to a large audience, but we would like more contributors if that's at all possible.
Thank you for becoming a Patreon to this show. We really appreciate it.
Much appreciated. So the Asimov story, getting back to Isaac Asimov and the Science Fiction University, because it is the last Tuesday in July. So
it is.
We would be doing the Science Fiction University. We would
ordinarily be doing Science Fiction University, but there's too much politics going on.
Too much politics. So you're going to get a 4-serving meal, a 4-course meal, we hope. Unless I just completely screwed this up. The Asimov story is about 2 professors at a local college, and some of you have read everything by Asimov. You know where this is going. And they're getting a little drunk at the faculty Christmas party. And the dramatis personae are a physics professor, an old physics professor, and a young English professor, new to the department. And the physics professor is going on and on about how he figured out how to use time travel to bring back notable people from the past, which is, just jumped right into it. That's one of those things. Yep, figured it out, tried it, and I brought back Archimedes and Newton and Galileo, but none of them could adapt to modern times. They couldn't tolerate modernity, so they got sad and they got lonely, and so the professor sent them back. Then he claims to have transported Shakespeare to the present day, which I will say wakes the English professor right up. Like, what? You who? No, that's not possible. Oh, yeah, it is. And I certainly did it. And Shakespeare, you see, according to Asimov, has a universal mind. He understands all things. And he understands human nature so well that he can live among people comfortably, even centuries past his own time. So Shakespeare was the ideal experiment to hang around and talk with and see what's going on. Anyway, the physics professor eventually gets around to telling Bill Shakes that there's a whole library full of books that are just analyzing his work. And he takes him to see these hundreds of volumes of commentary on the works of William Shakespeare. And here's a quote from the story, because I did look it up. Quote, "Oh, he was fascinated. Of course, he had trouble with the current idioms and references to events since 1600, but I helped out. Poor fellow. I don't think he ever expected such treatment. He kept saying, God have mercy, what cannot be racked from words in 5 centuries? One could wring, methinks, a flood from a damp cloth, unquote. Of course, the English professor believes none of this at all. This is all crazy talk by a drunk old man. The physics professor continues, telling him that he went so far as to enroll Shakespeare in a Shakespeare class at the college. And the English professor says, well, I teach one of those. He says, yeah, I enrolled him in your course under an assumed name. And guess what? You flunked him.
You flunked Shakespeare in Intro to Shakespeare.
Because
that's right out of Back to School.
It is.
With
Kurt Vonnegut.
Kurt Vonnegut. You know nothing about Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah. It's critiquing. The critics have gone so far beyond the text that it has gotten ridiculous. Anyway, that's the message of Asimov's story. And nevertheless, today we are going to dare to talk a little bit about Shakespeare and a little bit of politics and a little bit about the media. So.
Yeah. Now, over the centuries, some Shakespeare plays have had their ups and downs because it's just the way it is. Fashions and cultural attitudes change over time. Sometimes fair becomes foul and foul becomes fair.
See what we did there? See what we did?
For example, Smithsonian Magazine has a whole article entitled King Lear Used to Be a Bad Play.
And King Lear is one of those plays I would travel to go see. King Lear's an awesome
and
play.
The number of women who have played Lear in the past 20 years is growing. But over the centuries, some Shakespeare plays have had their ups and downs, right? And here's the article, King Lear Used to Be a Bad Play. Quote, William Shakespeare's tale of a king driven mad by his blind selfish need to be conspicuously loved. Sound familiar?
Yeah, timely.
King Lear, it hit the stage in December 1606. Performed for King James I and his court at Whitehall as part of the Christmas revels. There's no way of knowing whether the play was a success at the time, but the fact that it was published in 1608 in a quarto edition, a small cheap book for the popular press like a proto-paperback, seems to suggest that it was liked. By the second half of the century, however, Shakespeare's plays were no longer fashionable, and while audiences appreciated that there was a good story in Lear, they didn't like it. It was too grim, too dark, too disturbing, and it uncomfortably attempted to mix comedy and tragedy. So they fixed it.
Yeah.
They fixed King Lear.
Yeah.
In 1681, poet Nahum Tate, in his extensive rewrite of the play, took a heap of jewels, unstrung and unpolished, and, with the addition of a love story and happy ending, sought to rectify what was wanting in the regularity and probability of the tale. All the sisters there were evil stepsisters and so forth, but in the end, everybody was married and happy.
Like Mozart has too many notes. There's too many notes. Gotta fix that.
For more than 150 years, Tate's more sentimental version became the Lear everyone knew. I did not know this. This was the Lear the one actors became famous playing. If you saw a production of Lear, it was Tate's words, not Shakespeare's you heard, except between 1810 and 1820, when no one in England, at least, saw any version of Lear. Perhaps understandably, all performances of a play about a mad king were banned during the period of George III's mental illness.
I tell you, nothing
you know
changes.
Why, Driftglass? Because it's political.
That's right, because it's goddamn political. That's why.
It's goddamn political, absolutely. In the 19th century, however, Shakespeare's Lear was rediscovered by a new audience, one seemingly ready not only for the play's darkness, but also to embrace Shakespeare fully and without reservation.
Yes.
It was also open source by that time.
That's right.
Nobody had to pay Shakespeare. But whatever era you're living in, Macbeth is worth an overnight trip to Bloomington, and Timon of Athens and Cymbeline, in my opinion, are not worth the trip. But your mileage may vary.
Yeah, you keep a sign by the door with the play and the mileage that we will travel to go see it. And, if it crosses the line, we'll go. This is definitely worth it. So please bear with us for a minute while we shift into our writer's mode, because we're both writers, and Shakespeare was a writer, and we're not trying to imitate him, but there's stuff to be learned about, for example, the business of how to get a story started. Very important thing. Got to get a story started. there's the adage of kill the sheriff on the first page. You want to get started, kill the sheriff on the first page. The editor of Asimov's, I was on a panel, not on a panel, watched a panel with him talking about, he stayed with the story for 3 pages longer than he should because it began with a blowjob. I want to get your attention. So get the audience's attention. Now, to a lot of writers, and I'm including myself in this, there's nothing scarier than a blank page, especially if it's blank page 1, if it's the first page of your story. It happens to me every time I put together notes for this podcast. Believe it or not, every time I do this, it's like, this is going to be a failure. I'm never going to figure this out. It's just going to be bullshit. Every time I write a blog post, this happens. And every time I write a story, I've written lots of short stories, long short stories, and novella, and it's always the same. It's always that fear. You start with an idea or just a line, a quote, a notion, something in your head, and you try to bang it out into something readable that someone will want to read and enjoy.
And if I can interrupt for a minute, Driftglass, this is why you and I, when we teach writing, do writing exercises that just start with I remember and keep your pen moving. Just
move it.
And do not stop and do not edit yourself and do not try to think about it. Because if you try to think about it, you'll sit there with a blank piece of paper for an hour and you won't get anything done. And as you said, the blank page, eventually when you fill it,
is done. You're full.
It's done. You got to put words on paper. Yes.
Well, and we used to have, we use this term differently because we use it for changing stations. But back when I was facilitating writing groups and back when I was taking writing at Columbia College, we had a thing called the steeplechase, which was, the instructor calls time or I call time if it's my group, and we change something you're doing. Change the tense, change the perspective, change the person, change whatever. But you keep shifting gears on the story to knock yourself out of the habit of writing the same stuff over and over again, get yourself out of the rut. And it works. So sometimes I have no idea what the beginning of a story should be until I'm literally in the middle of it. Like, oh, that's okay. I get it now. I get what this story is supposed to be. And sometimes this has happened to me more than once. It happened to me with the first story I ever had published. Where I changed the tense from third to first and realized, oh, that's the story. It's a personal story.
The voice, yeah.
It's the voice.
Yeah.
And sometimes I realized that I need to dump the first 3 pages completely, And I can do this as an editor, but doing it to my own work requires it to sit on the shelf for a while and cool off, and I'm bad at doing it until it has
exactly why we start with write I remember and just keep writing, because when you get to that third page, all of a sudden you've found the meaning. You have absolutely found the meaning. Yeah.
You realize that the first 3 pages or a paragraph or whatever it is, if you're really good at this sort of thing, that's just the scaffolding my brain was using to get me to the real beginning of the story,
right?
Which is hiding on page 4. So when your writing instructor goes through the first 4 pages of your thing or 3 with nope, don't take it personally. They're helping you. They're trying to find your beginning, and it's in there somewhere. It's always in there somewhere. But whatever you do, catching the reader's attention as soon as possible is critical to getting them into the story, which means the trick is to get them into the story as quickly as you can, armed with as much exposition as necessary. Not as much as you can load onto their backs, but just enough as is necessary to get them into the story. Now, to get this done, Shakespeare uses prologues in 5 of his plays. They are Pericles, Henry V, Henry VIII, Troilus and Cressida, and Romeo and Juliet. And I remember vividly when middle child had to memorize the Romeo and Juliet prologue for school. And for a week, our house was full of, and I mean full of, 2 households both alike in dignity in fair Verona, where we lay our scene from ancient grudge break, line.
To new mutiny.
Oh, yeah. To new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Guarantee you she still remembers that whole thing. But it really was, it was nice. Yeah. It was fun. And coaching her along through memorizing Shakespeare is incredibly rewarding. But that's how Shakespeare used to start, or started a lot of his plays. Yeah. And, it's a great way to do it.
It's how a lot of theatrical productions start.
Absolutely.
I was, when we were rehearsing, I was talking to you about the 1960s Batman.
Yes.
There's always the voiceover at the beginning talking about how did Batman and his trusty boy Wonder get into this peril?
Yeah.
Where they're about to be run through a machine by the Joker, right?
Yeah.
They're stuck in some trap somewhere.
If you've ever seen Sunset Boulevard, the opening narration is by a corpse.
Yep.
Here I am dead in a pool. Let me tell you how that happened. And then you're in.
Yeah. It's a very efficient way to get the story going because the audience just accepts it as, okay, this is where we're at. And now let's hear what's going to happen. And it's sort of like that title crawl at the beginning of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it's chapter 4, A New Hope?
Chapter 4, A New Hope.
New Hope. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're really in the middle, right? The prologue chorus at the beginning of Romeo and Juliet and A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away at the beginning of Star Wars aren't really part of the story. They just take the stage for a minute, tell you the stuff you need to know, and then disappear.
Right.
But in Macbeth, it's different. Shakespeare does something ingenious. The prologue, such as it is delivered by characters who are integral to the play. In fact, without these characters, there is no play.
Absolutely.
Do all of you remember how the Scottish play begins?
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the hurly-burly's done. When the battle's lost and won.
That will be ere the set of sun.
Where the place?
Upon the heath.
There to meet with Macbeth.
I come, Grey Malkin.
Haddock calls.
Anon.
Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air.
Those are the three witches. The something wicked this way comes witches. Except in the play, they're called the Weird Sisters.
The Weird Sisters.
And this is Dame Judi Dench, goddess.
Goddess, absolutely.
From 1979, playing Lady Macbeth.
Hail, King that shall be. Hail, King that shall be. They met me in the day of success, and I've learned by the perfectest report they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves air into which they vanished. Whilst I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail, King that shall be.
According to the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, William Shakespeare used more than 20,000 words in his plays and poems, and his works provide the first recorded use of over 1,700 words in the English language, which is why neither of us, Driftglass or I, ever shy away from inventing a word if the situation calls for it. After all, if Shakespeare did it, this was Sarah Palin's excuse for her misspellings, but we really mean it.
Like dumpster fire, let's say.
Dumpster fire is a Driftglass coinage, yes. Google whack is another one. But here's the deal. Shakespeare, surprisingly, didn't invent the word weird.
He did not. He had an enormous vocabulary, obviously. You use 20,000 words in your plays. You know a lot of words. But weird isn't just a great first word in Wordle or a character on the old Chicago TV kids show Giggle Snort Hotel.
BJ, I can't find weird anywhere.
And by the way, my very first appearance on television in my life was on the live action version of that show on my 10th birthday. I beat Dirty Dragon, who was a character on the show, at tic-tac-toe because he let me win. I mean, come on, you're not going to beat a 10-year-old on your show on live TV. And I won, I don't know if you all remember this, a smash-up derby set. Now, was this the greatest day of my young life? It probably was. And I remember it to this day. Anyway, the word weird is wonderful because it's such an old word. It's an ancient word. And that's why it packs such a punch. Because while it's a very simple word, right below the surface, in the unconscious level of the word, where it's working on your unconscious, your deeply buried memories and your associations and feelings, it's busy conjuring up all those ancient meanings. Now, the word itself is at least 600 years old. And originally it had something to do with fate, having power to control fate. It's from Old English weird, which is spelled W-Y-R-D, which meant fate, chance, fortune, destiny, and the fates. Literally, that which comes.
This is from the online etymology dictionary because, damn it, we do the work. I just say. Driftglass does a lot of work prepping.
We do the research. We check stuff out.
Yeah. And after all, this is no fair remembering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the sense of uncanny, supernatural, developed from Middle English use of weird sisters for the three fates, or Norns in Germanic mythology, the goddesses who controlled human destiny, unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where another layer is added to the word, largely thanks to Shakespeare's Macbeth. Quote, the fates, Fates, were portrayed as odd or frightening in appearance, as in Macbeth, and especially in the 18th and 19th century productions of it, which led to the adjectival meaning odd-looking, uncanny, 1815, odd, strange, disturbingly different, 1820, unquote. Now, Winston Churchill once said, when you're trying to make a point, short words are best, and old words, when short, are best of all.
Mm-hmm.
And weird is just one syllable long, at least 600 years old, and has spent all those centuries accumulating all kinds of adjacent meanings like eldritch, hideous, ghastly, abnormal, strange, bizarre, unnatural, mad, creepy, horrific, and grotesque. Also pervert, I would add.
They're all packed in there, just waiting to be unleashed.
Yep. Right. It's a word with hooks and tentacles. It grabs, it clings. And it's a word that smells like something unholy and rotting. It's weird. He's weird.
Mm-hmm.
It is in every way the opposite of, now bear with me here, weird is the opposite of Barack Obama's failed approach to dealing with these lunatics. Go ahead, call them weird. And this quote, I'm so glad you found this because this explains so much to me. This is from friend of the pod, Rick Perlstein. Quote, the success of weirdness take on the GOP is inversely proportional to the disastrous Obamaist paradigm and its rule that the weirder the GOP became, the more weirdness had to be treated as an exception to some notional non-weird GOP essence, the fever that would break, unquote. And I know that Biden, talked about MAGA Republicans versus Republicans.
That's as close as
you come. And this isn't your father's Republican Party. And he tried to distinguish between Trump and the Republican Party. That's over now.
Right.
The torch has been passed.
Yes, it has. And boosting all of that, keeping Barack Obama and all those other critics in mind and keeping all the bloggers the hell out of the conversation was a corporate media that was deeply invested in lying about the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Pretending that they were just normal people, normal guys, just green eye shade, Edmund Burke quoting, salt of the earth, noble citizens, with a few fringe weirdos at the edges, but every party has fringe weirdos. And that was the only accepted narrative that would be allowed in the newspaper, on television, anywhere, ever. And so we liberals were on the outside just banging and banging on the door. And what we discovered back then and what has come true today is that the modern Republican Party has loaded us up with almost more examples of being weird than we can possibly use. This is what you call an embarrassment of riches. And it's because they can't help themselves. They literally can't help themselves. They're so locked into their own bizarro alternate reality that they are no longer capable of seeing how deeply weird they actually are. And once again, we liberals of the liberal blogosphere were shouting and pointing at all this creepy weirdness long before Trump showed up, which is why we're pariahs, which is why nobody wants to talk to us, and still don't, because we're the ones who got it right and everyone else got it wrong. This is me back in 2013 when I coined a phrase. Yes, I did. Just like Shakespeare. Yeah, just like Shakespeare.
9 years ago.
9 years ago.
And 2 years before the escalator.
That's
the golden escalator. 2 years.
I call them the tribe that rubs shit in their hair. And I'm sure we've mentioned it on this podcast once or twice or 7 times before. But now that weird is in vogue, this is from me in the summer of 2013. Quote, these are genuine charter members of the tribe that rub shit in their hair. my shorthand for the Conservative Mutual Masturbation Society, whose lunacy grows exponentially more unhinged when excitedly puppy piling their batshit nonsense among themselves, who happily rub shit in their hair because everyone else in the club is doing it, and are shocked and furious when they go out into the light of day to find that normal human beings are fleeing their unholy stink. And for them, history ends right about the time Johnny Quest premiered on ABC, and it only begins marching forward in full glory again on January 20th, 2009, the day the Kenyan usurper destroyed America, unquote. They have passed the point where they can just be normal anymore, because inside their weirdo cave, normal now codes as dirty, commie, libtard, Soros, deep state baby killers. That's what normal means now to them. So these pasty, self-righteous, rigidly ignorant, sexually terrified wingnut child men have no choice but to try to spackle up all the little holes in their cave through which modernity and complexity and reality continues to leak. It just keeps getting darker and weirder in there. And the more that happens, the more they become violently allergic to normality and light.
That Rick Perlstein quote answered a question for me that I've had for a couple days now, which is, why didn't we call them weird during the Tea Party nonsense? When they had those incredibly racist signs about Barack Obama, they had stupid signs about, government hands off my Medicare.
Yeah.
And just you talk to them and they were nuts and had no understanding of how government worked, how they benefited from government spending.
Anything worked.
And it was flat out racism most of the time.
Well, I think because we were calling them racist for being racist, it was just weird.
And we can't do that. Right. That's not civil. Right. And we have to be civil and understand that the fever will break.
Right. No.
And it's not a fever. They're weird. Another very important virtue of weird in our modern political context, and I love this, you can't both sides. You can't do, the Democrats are weird too, when you've got QAnon are all Republican. When you've got the people thinking that JFK Jr. is coming back and actually sat in the audience the day that Trump was shot at. You can't do that with a straight face. And however much the right hates Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Barack Obama, they're just too normal and boring to be painted that level of weird. It might play with the tribe that rubs shit in their hair because they're already gone, but try that with those allegedly independent and undecided voters, and you just look stupid. Trump today was talking about who's a good Jew and who's a bad Jew, and all the bad Jews, like Kamala Harris's husband is a bad Jew.
And he's done that before, many times before.
And one colleague of ours said, this is thinly veiled anti-Semitism. And I said, not thin. And another colleague said, not veiled.
Yeah. Only two things wrong with that description.
Yeah, right. It's just not. And then we get people lecturing us to be more adult.
Right.
Which is adorable.
Which is a tell.
Absolute tell. And you get this a lot too. I don't know if you've noticed this, Driftglass. If you start bringing up Social Security and Medicare privatization, and you get back, that will never happen. That's never going to happen.
Right.
Trump doesn't really believe in that.
Right.
And that will never happen. And you just know that the reason they think that will never happen is that Democrats will save them.
Right.
And yet they're electing Republicans over and over again. But they believe Democrats from somewhere else, apart from them and apart from their district, will save their benefits.
Because we've done it over and over again. Because they've elected lunatics.
We taught them that. Exactly.
Yeah. They've elected lunatics and arsonists and who've destroyed things and wrecked things and plunged the economy into one disaster after another. And then we elect by the skin of our teeth someone to clean up their mess, and they scream and jump up and down and call him a Kenyan usurper or call Bill Clinton a cocaine-dealing rapist.
Right.
And then they do it all over again. And they do it as a child would, knowing that mommy will bail them out. No matter what they do, no matter how bad they get, mommy will bail them out. And the problem is we are shackled to these idiots.
Right.
So if they go over the cliff, we go over with them, which is why it's time to stop saving them and time to start preventing them from ever holding office ever again.
Exactly. Yep. So this is Vivek Ramaswamy on X. This whole their weird argument from the Democrats is dumb and juvenile. This is a presidential election, not a high school prom queen contest. It's also a tad ironic coming from the party that preaches diversity and inclusion. Win on policy if you can, but cut the crap, please.
Yeah.
Like you said, that is full of tells.
Oh, yeah.
It's so you're the tolerant left.
Right.
Calling people weird.
Yeah.
I'm done tolerating people who, the anniversary, this past weekend.
Yeah.
Of John McCain's thumb preventing the Republican Party from taking away my health insurance.
Yeah.
I'm not tolerating that. There's no tolerance there.
To quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, this is not the tolerant left you're looking for. This is no.
Not.
You have, and the problem is we have been this way, not just you and I, but the liberal blogosphere and liberals that we know have been this way for a very long time. We are simply denied a platform on which to express ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we leak through to the mainstream, when our message, when both sides do it, becomes a punchline, that's when the tone police roll out.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when the mind your manners, be civil, behave yourself, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what Ramaswamy is trying to do here. He's trying to be a tone cop.
Right.
His entire party is dumb and juvenile.
Right.
And their policies are all terrible and reckless and medieval. And he's smart enough to fucking well know that. So all he can do is pound the table and complain that Democrats are doing something that makes him sad. Yeah, and they should stop doing that because you're making me sad.
Well, and as Angry Staffer pointed out on Twitter, the fuck your feelings crowd are currently curled up in the fetal position sobbing into their Trump flags because we called them weird.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that Tom Friedman said, you might regret doing that.
Yeah.
That's a sure sign that we ought to keep going.
Yeah. Or 6 more months. Give us 6 more months.
We got 6 more months of Republicans are weird in us.
Yeah.
Not to mention that they've already nominated the weirdest and most failing vice presidential candidate in party history.
And I'm going to do a Joe Biden now. I'm going to whisper, and they know it. And they know it. That's why they're pissing themselves. Yeah. They know they fucked up.
Yep.
So a few other notes about the Scottish play, which we are allowed to call Macbeth. We're not jinxing anyone. Before we wrap up, first, the show we attended was awesome. It was great. As we mentioned, front row center, outdoor theater, perfect night, clear skies, low 70s, no bugs. And the courtyard outside the theater, which is beautiful grounds, this courtyard outside the theater, put on this excellent Broadway show tune review for an hour before the play started. So if you come early and you got nothing to do, you sit out there, you drink some wine or you have a beverage and you watch these young people put on an amazing performance.
It's a student review. It's their opportunity to rehearse in front of an audience.
And they were great.
For fun. They were fantastic. Absolutely.
And it was just, and then you just stroll down to the theater and you grab your programs and you go in, and before the show starts, if you look carefully in the corners, there are strange looking creatures peering out at you from behind the curtains and up in the scaffolding and behind the stairs, and like, oh, I get it, the play has already started. Yay! Yay! This is awesome.
There's some weird sisters looking at you as you're sitting down. Yes.
And you had a great night for one specific reason.
Well, I noticed as we were getting our tickets at the will call window, there was a woman wearing a hand knit shawl that I recognized as, game recognizes game. And she had clearly knit this beautiful shawl, and I complimented her on it and then walked down to my seat, and she was 2 seats down with a friend who was also knitting. And so the three of us, we three weird sisters, right?
Exactly.
When shall we meet again in thunder, lightning, or in rain, or shall we just knit?
Yeah.
And none of us knit during the show, but before the show, we were all knitting and talking about the sorcery of turning the heel in a sock. And, it was very appropriate to the play that we three were being weird sisters together.
And I had nothing to add to that other than I'm awestruck by the synchronicity of it all, other than to say, you remember in this play, listen for the line, knit up the raveled sleeve of care.
Yes.
It's the
yes.
it's
right there.
There are a lot of memorable lines in Macbeth, but the most memorable line in this household involves knitting.
So yeah, I got to see my tribe at the play.
And because Bill Shakes, as we shall call him from now on, because we're all writers here, was such a keen observer of human nature, in his plays, you can find every kind of person from every walk of life, and they all ring very true and authentic. These are real people. These feel like real people, and they have real feelings and real depth. So what is Macbeth about? We've gone all this way down this road. What is Macbeth about? Now, if you've not seen Macbeth, spoilers are coming for a play.
Go and watch The Tragedy of Macbeth on Apple TV. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Or any of the hundreds of other versions that have been made.
Yeah, on YouTube, there's a lot of versions. Yeah.
Spoilers for a play that's somewhere between 408 and 413 years old, based on my research, and has been performed literally hundreds of thousands of times on stages all across the world, and has been adapted for the screen hundreds of times in dozens of languages. I couldn't and didn't want to spare the time to count up all the stuff in Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't even say how many times it's been on the screen. It just says many times, many, many, many times in lots of languages. So the story is this. It's about a soldier who was either doomed by fate or tempted by fate. That's the crux of the play. Which is it? And you don't know. Morally, he's weak and he's an indecisive man. There's a line in which his wife asks him if he's a man, and everyone laughed at that.
Yeah.
Who is told by the Weird Sisters that he's destined to be the king, which is pretty amazing since he's nowhere near the line of succession, but that he will be poisoned. It'll be a poisoned crown. He'll get it, but he'll have no heirs and no dynasty. Instead, he's told that his friend Banquo will beget a whole line of kings, stretching out, I believe, to the crack of doom. So not him, but this other guy is going to get the glory and the long-term dynasty.
And I am waiting for the version of Macbeth where Macbeth has a comb over and a long red tie.
You're watching it right now, honey. You're watching it right now.
We're watching it in real time. Macbeth believes the prophecy because the Weird Sisters whet his appetite with just a little bit of prophetic truth that is quickly confirmed by events.
Exactly.
But his friend Banquo has doubts. But 'tis strange and oftentimes to win us to our harm. The instruments of darkness tell us truths. Win us with honest trifles to betrays in deepest consequence.
That's right. You want to get someone to buy your con, buy your scam, tell them a little bit of truth. Win their confidence with a little bit of verifiable truth. You remember in The Sting, how they get the guy to give them their money? They show him their money first.
Yep.
Yeah. This is how much we trust you. And then they take him for everything he's got.
Yep. And they let him win. They let him win once so that he knows that it's an actual thing. Yeah. To fulfill the prophecy and make himself king. He doesn't just sit back and say, oh, if this is prophecy, I'm going to become king. Great. No. Okay. I'll just sit back, enjoy life. When it comes, it comes.
Yeah.
He and, of course, his wife can't wait for that.
No.
Macbeth commits one of the worst betrayals imaginable. He murders his own king. It's regicide while the king is sleeping under Macbeth's roof and under his protection. If only good King Duncan had watched The Godfather.
Mazzini won't move against you first. He'll set up a meeting with someone that you absolutely trust, guaranteeing your safety. And at that meeting, you'll be assassinated.
Now, all these years later, we don't have a king. In this country, we don't have a king. We have elections and we have presidents. So the closest betrayal we have to, let's say, regicide and usurpation would be something like attempting to overthrow the government by staging a violent coup against the peaceful transfer of power and promising to throw your political enemies into prison once you've seized power. And having fulfilled one part of the prophecy by treachery and murder, Macbeth goes on to try to defy the rest of the prophecy also by treachery and murder. And to keep from losing it all, and importantly, to keep from facing the consequences of his actions, because the consequences will be dire if he's ever caught. If anybody ever gets authority over him, Macbeth becomes a mad, bloody tyrant. It does not end well for Macbeth.
Now, not to make too quick a connection to modern times, but you might remember that a little more than a week ago, Donald Trump and the Republicans thought they had this in the bag. So what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Why bother campaigning? Why bother vetting your pick for vice president? Why not tear up the script for your Republican acceptance speech about unity and civility and instead let your freak flag fly?
Absolutely. He's
Mass
unbeatable.
deportations now signs.
Right. Unbeatable,
waving
indestructible,
around.
unstoppable. Nothing can stop this train. Nothing can stop them. They're going all the way. And then the impossible thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then Joe Biden stepped aside. And suddenly, Burnham Wood is coming to Dunsinane, Blue Gal.
Yep.
Suddenly, the forest is on the move. And suddenly, all these prophecies start to look real scary. Then, Vice President Kamala Harris becomes the candidate. And Kamala Harris is no man born of woman. Just saying.
No man born of woman can defeat Trump.
Nope.
In 2024.
Nope. What?
Uh-oh.
They're running a what? They're running a what?
They're doing a what?
FYI, a little show note. My wife has reminded me that we are going to be on the broadcast on Wednesday, July 31st. We're recording it sometime in the afternoon, and then it goes on the air after they make us sound good and edit it and so forth.
And I'm going as Digby.
Right. You're going as Digby.
Everyone will accidentally call me Digby while I'm there, and I'll love every minute of it.
And I'm going as Tim Miller, so I'll just be there going, I told you all.
We just figured out our April Fool's show for next year. That's it.
Yes, we did.
Digby and Tim Miller. Okay. No, but to get serious here for a moment, this weird thing now opens up, and this is Shakespearean.
It is.
Because the cave opens up, and people are looking at pictures of Tea Party rallies.
Oh my God. These
people are weird.
Remembering stuff. They're remembering things.
They're remembering stuff. They're remembering the purple Band-Aids that people wore at one of the Bush, conventions. And they've been weird for a really long time.
They have. They've been terrible.
This word is easy to understand, and it's not the only word in our arsenal either. The idea that, you guys are, leaning too hard on this because, you'll get to the election day and you'll have nothing else. Lots of ammunition against the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And Trump can't answer a question from Laura Ingraham.
Right.
Laura keeps having to bring him back, and he doesn't know where he is.
Yep.
And it's weird that they nominated this guy.
Yeah.
It's weird that the billionaires of this party backed him. Mm-hmm. And what I'm telling you, what we're going to find out is not only that Donald Trump is currently bankrupting the Republican Party, and when you get to January of next year, people are going to look up and go, oh, wait, the party's bankrupt, and we're entirely dependent on Peter Thiel. It's that the mainstream media never talked about that.
Nope, never once.
And they know it now. They know now that this is happening.
Yeah.
There was a blogger, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one, but talking about, wow, flush all of that PAC money because JD Vance has been given his own airplane.
Yep.
Trump Force 2. I mean, they're just riding high because they're not paying for it. Trump's not paying for it. And he's having all of his fundraising events at Mar-a-Lago.
Right, where he can charge.
Where he can charge everybody. Mm-hmm. Rack rate plus for hotel space in his crappy Florida hotel. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's weird, Drift Class.
Well, it's a scam.
It's a scam.
And the thing that we mention repeatedly on this show and in person and to each other over breakfast is what's most ominous and what's most noticeable is that dog that doesn't bark in the night.
Yeah.
To go back to classical writing, this time Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes. Mm-hmm. The dog that didn't bark in the night. The dog that should be barking its fucking head off about all this are the corporate mainstream journalist political media people. That's their job. That's their whole fucking job. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're staying, they're holding themselves silent on all these subjects because they can't find a way to both sides it. They can't both sides bankrupting the party. They can't
Right.
both sides scamming. They can't both sides weird. So we're
Kamala
not going to
Harris
talk
is
about
not bankrupting. Her daughter-in-law is not running the DNC.
No.
Trump's daughter-in-law has been installed at the RNC to make sure that all the money goes to him.
And Barack Obama's
Win Red and Act Blue are not the same.
And Barack Obama's niece wasn't installed after she gave up the Obama name to run the RNC as a family business and then got fired and blah, blah, blah. There's no comparison between the two at all.
No.
And there's no comparison among policies, among the candidates, among the surrogates at all. And there's no way to fit the narrative that the only narrative the media wants to tell around this story. So they're sitting there going, what do you want to talk about? Fuck, I don't know. What? Who's going to be the vice president? And is that going to cause trouble? Will there be trouble in doggy land if Kamala Harris picks so-and-so versus so-and-so? We don't care.
Yeah.
All the choices she has in front of her are excellent. All the people she has lined up to speak on her behalf, on our behalf, are excellent. Mm-hmm. So there's no fighting going on inside the party. And now, in local news...
Yes, this is from the Daily Line. The Democratic Party of Illinois will launch their 2024 campaign plan on Tuesday that focuses on winning down-ballot races at all levels of government as part of the party's growing efforts to expand victories to local offices. The party has their eyes set on expanding the record-sized supermajority in the state legislature. Because why not?
Why not? Run up the score. Run it up.
As well as protecting Democrat-held congressional seats, in addition to putting more resources into campaigns for local offices.
Uh-huh.
The Democratic Party of Illinois will be targeting resources toward 2 members of Congress who are most at risk of being beat by Republicans this fall. U.S. Representative Eric Sorensen of Moline and U.S. Representative Nikki Budzinski of Springfield. And here's the important part. Both are freshman lawmakers. It is understood that if Nikki Budzinski gets reelected after being a freshman, her seat will be safer because by that time it's name recognition and she's able to do enough constituent services that people recognize that she's a good congressperson.
It's not a fluke. Yeah.
It's not a fluke. Right. They represent districts. Sorensen and Budzinski represent districts that have historically been on the fence between the parties. Sorensen that's not true. I'm sorry. I thank you for your service, Daily Line. Budzinski's district is gerrymandered to the inch.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
And I would love to get rid of gerrymandering across the country. As long as gerrymandering exists, Illinois is going to use it so there's one downstate Democrat.
Yep.
By the way, it's a district that is a little snake. It actually cuts one district almost in half. Mm-hmm. And it goes from East St. Louis all the way up to the Bloomington Normal area, cutting through Springfield. It's a college district. It's a little road that goes right up through all these colleges. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorensen is viewed as the most vulnerable candidate, with the National Republican Congressional Committee dumping resources into the race to back Joe McGraw, who I'm sure is a good Christian man who loves guns. I'm thrilled to have the support of the Democratic Party of Illinois as we fight to win critical races like mine in Illinois' 13th district. That's the professional lift district.
That's right.
And deliver a Democratic Congress and White House in November. Budzinski said in a statement, coordinated efforts like Organize Illinois 2024 will play a crucial role in our success. Yeah. You didn't write that, Nikki Budzinski, but we appreciate it again. Anyway.
Yeah. This is FYI. This, you know what? If you're going to start a third party, start on the downstate ticket. If you really want to change politics, you got to do what they're doing right here, which is focus. And we're doing that. This is the stuff that never makes headlines. We are actually focusing a ton of money and time and energy on down ticket races because that's the bench. Those are the people who are coming up in the party. That's the next generation of leaders in the party. And
can we talk about our bench for a minute while we're talking about Kamala Harris and all of her Veep stakes and it's Governor Walz and Governor Shapiro and J.B. Pritzker, who Kamala cannot have as her vice president.
No, Gretchen Whitmer. Yeah.
Gretchen Whitmer is not, and also Cooper. Both Whitmer and Cooper have bowed out of the Veep stakes. They are not interested.
I mean, as surrogates, just as surrogates.
But as surrogates, And Whitmer is the national chair, one of the co-chairs of the Kamala Harris for President campaign. So she's got a strong, heavy role, in the campaign. We've got great senators, we've got great governors, and the idea that these guys and gals are out campaigning for Kamala Harris and meeting with these tremendously enthusiastic crowds and giving them more to be enthusiastic about.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing a great job. You watch these speeches and they're just, oh, wow, these guys really have some juice in them.
And they're talking about how Donald Trump is going to get his ass kicked by a black woman.
He sure
out
is.
Loud.
Yeah, that was
out
Governor
loud.
Walz. Yeah, and I think he won Charlie Pierce over. Charlie Pierce said,
"That's it."
Yeah, that kind of seals the deal for me. I want to say I am not picking a vice president for Kamala Harris.
No,
the last time I said anything about who should be the vice president on the ticket, we got, no offense, Tim Kaine.
We got mayonnaise on mayonnaise.
Was a mistake.
Which was a mistake.
Yes.
However, on that long list, and it's a very long list, and there are local people who are good. There are local people in your community. There are Congress people. There are people in city council who are all really good and eloquent, and that's how Tim Walz got discovered. Somebody turned a spotlight on him and was like, holy crap, this guy can talk. Yes. Pete Buttigieg keeps going on Fox News and stealing their lunch over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he goes on, he won't let them steer the conversation the way, and he's very calm, and he has the facts.
He's very polite.
Just rolls into him, and they don't know what to do with him because they can't rile him.
He's a nice white guy, who happens to be gay and have kids and have a family, and is willing to talk about his children and his husband and all of that in a very calm, Midwestern, TV-friendly way.
And you can't make these people ashamed of believing what they believe.
No,
you can't make them ashamed.
They're not weird.
Right. You can't make them ashamed of backing labor or wanting Medicare or caring about the environment.
Treating airlines like a customer service issue, which is what it is.
Yeah. When our governor goes on social media like 9 times and says, abortion is not a dirty word.
Right.
We welcome all of our Iowa citizens
and Missouri,
over here where there is civilization and medical care that you need.
Right.
He's not afraid to say those words. And that is a major breakthrough.
Because how many hundreds of women a month, a week are coming into Illinois for care?
Yeah. And
we are the island of women are equal. Women are people.
And what do the weirdos want to do? They want to track women's
travel.
And
it's the
prevent
Mann Act
them.
all over again.
And prevent women from traveling out of state without JD Vance's express approval.
Right. That's the Mann Act. It's immoral purposes, crossing state lines for immoral purposes. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this thing up.
Keep those cards and letters coming, folks. We love hearing from you. And thank you, everybody who sent a birthday card. I got the most beautiful birthday cards. I got an embroidered birthday card. I am keeping that one forever. It just blows me away that people send me birthday cards. But thank you. It's been a great birthday month for me. This Shakespeare trip was part of my birthday celebration. Driftglass taking me out for an evening of Shakespeare. And it was a lovely, lovely gift. Thank you, Driftglass.
You're welcome.
And so be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service Go Postal Unions letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
Do not forget, we have a thing called the Gourmet Coffee Guidelines. And if you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, please buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job. We go all the way to Bloomington and watch plays just to tell you what Macbeth is about. Come on. That's service. You don't get that anywhere.
When it was the Weird Sisters, when they said that, we were like, oh, content.
Yeah. You're going to get this at Pod Save America? I don't think so. So if you're going to spare us $5 a month, please spare $5 a month at patreon.com/proleftpod. Please share this show on social media. And if you love this podcast or you love Shakespeare or science fiction and you know someone else who might love them as well, please ask them to listen. That has been wonderful for us. We have gotten a trickle, but a slow, steady trickle of new listeners, new Patreons, a small number every week or so.
Every week, there's a few more. And I was showing you our stats from April yesterday, and then our stats for July. And it's like, really? We have 107 more listeners?
Yeah. And
in 3 months? That's phenomenal growth for us.
And that's from people telling other people, look, they're really good.
Is.
They know what they're talking about. They're Midwesterners, and they talk like we talk.
They're loyal Democrats who love Joe Biden and love Kamala Harris. Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. If you're doing that, thank you. If not, why aren't you doing that?
Hey, Drift Class, how are the Internet Kitties doing this evening?
Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties say, please, for the love of God, please keep insulting cats and the women who own them. It's kind of weird.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.